This is the exact method that I used to do over $5 million in concrete estimates in 2022. In this video, I'm going to break a common myth that we have to charge by the square foot to keep things simple. This estimating technique is the reason that I am not out of business and that I now own a $3 million concrete company that is very profitable. So make sure that you stick to the end because this could save your business just like it did mine. This estimating technique is something that is one of the most powerful tools that I have in my company. We now do $3 million a year in concrete work. And I want to make sure I show you this so that way you can make as much money as possible in your concrete business as well. When I started my business back in 2018, I almost went out of business in my very first year. And I think the main reason because of that was because I was charging by the square foot. Let me explain. In 2018, me and my father-in-law started a concrete business together. My father-in-law, Caesar, was really good at concrete, but neither of us knew the proper way to run a concrete business. And even just to get started, we didn't even know how to estimate our concrete jobs correctly. There were some jobs in particular that we made a lot of money on, and there were other jobs that we completely lost our butt. And the worst part is I had no idea how to estimate properly to make sure that we were going to win more of the jobs that we were making a lot of money or make more money on the jobs of the ones that we were losing money on because we weren't charging correctly. There was one job in particular when we started that we literally almost lost everything because we did not charge nearly enough. And so if you're in the beginning of your concrete business, or if you don't have a ton of experience, make sure that you pay a lot of attention to how you price things, because if you price things wrong, you could stand to lose a lot of money. One of our first jobs within probably the first 2 months of doing business was a staircase that went going down a very steep hill. And in the very beginning, we were used to charging about $6 a square foot. And I knew that a staircase going down the hill was a lot more work than, say, just like a square pad, obviously. But the hard part is I had no rhyme or reason into figuring out like how much harder it was. Like, was it gonna be double the work, triple the work, quadruple the work? I really had no idea. And so because of that, I just threw out a random cost per square foot that I thought sounded like a lot of money. I think back at the time it was like 15 bucks a square foot, which I was like, wow, if we're normally charging 6, if I charge 15, then we're gonna make a lot of money on that, right? Well, it turns out that we were on that staircase job. I think it was only like 200 square feet, which 200 square feet was like 3,500 bucks. And it took us a week to do. So just in direct labor cost, we were already under the hole, not to mention all of the material from concrete and rebar and forms and all of that stuff. So that was a very early on lesson to learn that I had to be really careful when doing estimates for concrete because you could lose a lot of money really fast if you just throw out WAGs, which I call wild ass guess. And that was the hard part too, is it wasn't just complicated jobs like that staircase job that we were losing money on. Sometimes it was just a basic job. Like for instance, if we were doing a driveway and that driveway was 400 square feet, and a different driveway was 1,000 square feet, I realized that it really didn't take that much more time to do the 1,000 square foot driveway because by the time that we brought out our machine and our dump trailer and all that stuff, really didn't take that much more time to do 2.5 times more of the square foot. So we made a lot more money on the bigger driveways, and we basically didn't make money or lost money on some of the smaller driveways because we charged all the same cost per square foot. And so, as you can see, it's not just about like the complexity of the project that really will determine like cost per square foot is good or bad. Ever since I've learned this new estimating method that I'm about to share with you, it changed our business forever. All right, so instead of doing cost per square foot, we now do all of our estimates using 3 main items in the estimate. One is we charge for the labor hours times our hourly labor rate. 2 is we charge for materials times our material markup. And 3, we charge for all of our equipment or any other fees like disposal fees, permitting, etc. So how do we know what labor rate to charge and what material markup we need to charge on all of our projects? And that's what I want to dive into for the rest of this video. All right, so the very first thing that we have to do when we are calculating what to charge for our labor hourly rate is our total labor hours. Total labor hours. So I want you to start thinking of your business as basically just being a rental business. we only have a certain number of man hours that we can attribute throughout the year. And so what we want to do is figure out how many man hours that we have to be able to sell throughout the whole entire year. And then we need to backtrack it to figure out how much money we need to make per hour, not only to pay for our costs, our direct labor costs, but also our overhead. But we'll get a little bit more into that here in just a second. So in order to find total labor hours, what we want to do is figure out how many field staff do we have. All right, so very first step that we need to figure out is simply how many field staff do we have. Then what we want to do is we want to multiply how many field staff we have by how many hours they have available in the year. So I live in Colorado, so we really only get to work 9 months out of the 12 months. And so what I like to do is say that we like that each guy only works 40 weeks and then they work roughly 45 hours per week. All right, so for me, I have 11 field staff and I have 1,800 hours per employee. So that means for me, I have 19,800 total hours that I basically can sell as a business for each year that I'm in business. And again, it's because we have 11 field staff. Each field staff works 40 weeks and then 45 hours per week. So each field staff has about 1,800 hours that I'm allowed to sell. So that means in a total year, I have about 19,800 total labor hours. All right, something else that we need to consider that I just put up here for you guys is not every single amount of labor hours that we have for sale, our guys are actually going to be productive, right? Because we have certain things like we have shop time, or sometimes there's things that come up on projects that we don't plan for. And so not every single hour that a guy is going to be in our business is going to be a sellable hour. So the rule of thumb that I like is only 90% of our actual labor that we have, because this is our total amount of labor, right? Your field staff times your amount of hours per field staff. And only 90% of that is going to be used towards actual sellable, billable hours. And so what we want to do is take the total labor hours times 0.9, and that'll give us the total amount of hours that we have for sale in our business. So go ahead and pause and do that before you continue on to the next step. All right, so now that we have the total amount of labor hours that we have available to sell throughout the year, we need to figure out what our total overhead is. And if you don't know what overhead is, that's totally okay. Basically, just think of overhead as everything that your business is going to have to pay for, whether you're doing work or not. So for instance, there are things like insurance, there are things like cell phones, bills, gas, marketing, any sort of office staff. Really anything that you can think of that's going to be coming out of your bank every single month, whether you're doing jobs or not, that's what you want to list down as overhead. And what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and link a bunch of the things that you may want to consider right down here below, because what you want to do is what you're going to want to calculate this, because our main goal is to make sure that we're charging enough per hour to not only cover our direct costs, which is our labor costs, but also make sure that we're covering and making enough money to pay for all of our overhead plus a profit. So here, give me just a second and you'll be able to see all the overhead items right here. All right, so what I want to do is I just wanted to list out some rough overhead items so that way you guys can take a look here. And if you're looking at this and you're like, man, this is a lot of work, I want you to know something. This is a lot of work, okay? But the good news is once you guys do this, you guys will be set up. And once you have this estimating process all set in place, it's a lot easier to create estimates and also make sure that you're doing estimates accurately. So just stick with it. Don't give up, guys. This is super important for your business. Let's go over some of these overhead items. So we have things like insurance, marketing, phone bills, equipment charges. That's anything with equipment, right? That's like if you have your equipment finance, that's your payments, etc. You have accounting fees, software. You have any warranty work that you expect, both labor and material, vehicle licensing, small tools and equipment, vehicle maintenance, legal fees, trainings, travel, rent, bad debt, office supplies, equipment, trade associations, and anything else that you can think of. Okay, so I actually have a Excel sheet that I put together that I use to go through and automatically calculate this for a lot of my paid consulting clients that are concrete companies. And this takes almost a full entire day to do together. So I want you guys to realize, like I said, this is a lot of work, but it is super important. And once you get your total overhead, like what I have here, then we'll move on to the next step. All right, so I went ahead and filled all of this out as just like a rough example for you guys, okay? But this is exactly what you wanna do. So first, you wanna find out what your labor cost is, okay? And basically what your labor cost is just the average amount that you pay your guys. So I know some guys, you know, like say higher up guys, you might have that make somewhere around like $35 an hour, for instance. Might be lower in your area, might be higher. Some of your lower end guys might make $20 to $25 an hour. Again, might be higher. Just go ahead and figure out what the average hourly rate is for your business and put that here. And then what we want to find out is your labor burden. What labor burden is, those are all the things that we pay for that are above and beyond like the typical amount that you pay your guys. So for instance, you're gonna have things like Social Security and Medicare. You're gonna have workers' comp insurance. You're gonna have your state and your federal taxes. Go ahead and figure out all that, what that is, and then you want to put that here. If you want to just estimate 30% is a pretty safe number. So our actual cost per labor hour is $39 per hour. And then what we want to do is we move over all of our overhead items and figure out the total, move that over to right here. So whatever your overhead cost is, put that here. Then what we do is we take our total billable hours that we figured out earlier and we put that here. And that's what we use to come up with our overhead cost per hour. What an overhead cost per hour is how much per hour that we are paying in overhead based on all the calculations that we did. So what we want to do is we take our overhead costs, we divide it by our total billable hours, and that's what gives us our overhead cost per hour. And then with those, now we can figure out what our total cost per hour is. Our total cost per hour is simply our overhead cost per hour, and then we add our labor cost per hour after labor burden. And so that means in this example, our total cost per hour is $67 an hour. Once you go ahead and do this in your own business, I think you might be shocked, because I know I certainly was. I didn't realize how much that it costed me just to operate my business. For every single hour that I have one person on site, it cost me $67 an hour. And this is just an example. My actual business is actually higher cost per hour. But then what we want to do is we want to mark all that up by about 20%. It's your business, so you can decide how much you want to mark it up. But I think it's pretty fair to mark up 20% to our clients with everything that we have to organize for them. And that's what we're gonna go ahead and use to put together your estimates. All right, so now what we want to do is put everything together. Let me walk through a very basic estimate for you. So again, just to recap, what we want to do just to get an estimate is we take the labor hours that we expect to use on a project times the hourly labor rate that we just calculated together. Then we want to add our material costs times the markup. And then we want to do any other charges. This would be things like dump fees or permitting or equipment costs, like for large equipment, times your markup. And then that's what we bid. So let's go ahead and let's do a bid together really fast. All right, guys, so what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna put together a bid that I actually just finished up this morning. I just sent this out to my customer. And just for a little bit of context, what it is this is actually a pole barn. This shop area here is actually just an area where my customer is gonna pull in all of his trucks. It's actually even gonna have like a drain in the middle of it, so all the concrete is gonna slope towards the middle of the drain. This is just normal 4-inch interior concrete. This is actually 5-inch interior concrete here. And then this is 5-inch exterior concrete, okay? So let's go ahead and put the numbers together for this real fast. And let me show you kind of how I ended up figuring it out. And then you guys can see what my total bid is, and we can check it out. All right, so this is actually the bid that I was just working on. Just ignore all this stuff here. This is a previous bid that I did at a same property, but it's all kind of going together under the same thing. And so what we see here is it has all the components that we just talked about. This is actually a separate software. It's called LMN. I'll actually leave a link in the description of the software if you guys want to check it out. I'm not affiliated with it at all. This is just what I choose to run my business because it makes putting together estimates very simple. And then what you'll notice is all the components that we talked about are already in here, so it allows me to put together estimates like super fast. So let's just go through it. So when building this out here, as you can tell, it's quite a bit of square foot. It's a decent size job. And so I break my labor hours into prep and pour, but you could just do total. And so what I was coming up with is it's going to take us about 75 man hours to prep this out at. Okay. And over time, you'll learn how to put together your own bids and learn how long projects will take. That's kind of the art and science that you'll learn the longer and longer that you're in business. But the good part is if you can get this accurate, you know all of your costs are covered because we did an overhead cost per hour. So this is why this method is so much superior to an cost per square foot model, is because you're going to know exactly how much to charge. So let's see here. Total labor hours for this job, I had 75 prep and then 75 for pour and finish. And then it multiplies it automatically times my labor hour hourly rate, which is $88 an hour. I charge separately for things like trucks. So I have a cleaning truck, a couple days of my large trucks with dump trailers attached to them, and then I have an excavator in here for a day. So these are all of my equipment charges, and it's good to have a software that will automatically calculate this for you guys. But as just like a rule of thumb, I typically charge around what it would cost to rent out my equipment. So if you want to figure that out, just figure out what it would cost to rent you the equipment even though you own it and charge that to your customer. You still want to charge for your equipment even though you own it because you're the one that's responsible for putting gas in it, upkeep, maintenance, insurance on it, and all that stuff. So don't sell yourself short, guys. Then I have all of my materials. So for this job, I have rebar, I have concrete yards, I have recycled concrete that we're going to use as a base, I have how many forms that we're going to use, and I have some PVC. And again, you'll see I have my unit cost and then my total cost for each of my materials, but then it multiplies it by my 20% markup that I like. And for this bid, I did 15% on concrete because it was quite a bit of concrete, and it adds it all together. The only other thing that I had was pump fees. I did 3 pumps just because it's 79 yards of concrete. And so that brings it out, if you can see it, $36,658.95. And the nice part is, that's not a guessing game, guys. I know exactly how much I need to charge for each project in order to make money because I break everything down in individual components. And again, I know that this is may look very daunting, and just keep in mind, really anything is daunting when you first try it, but that doesn't mean to do it. Pricing your jobs is one of the most important things that you could possibly do as a concrete contractor. And the nice thing is when you price jobs correctly, you'll naturally win more of the jobs that you were always gonna make money on, and then you're gonna lose the jobs that you were not going to make money on. And I know that sounds like crazy to want to lose jobs, but think about it, guys. Is it better to lose jobs that you were never going to make money on, or do the projects and then pay to do them? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I know concrete is hard ass work, and I don't want to be doing concrete if I'm not going to make any money. Like, I'm at a customer's house to make money. And this estimating strategy ensures that we're going to make the most money that we can on a concrete project. All right, and that's it, everyone. That's all that I have for you today. I know that this may look very daunting, very scary, but trust me, just give it a try. I am serious. Like, it literally saved my business. And I wanted to create this just to try to help other people out there who may be struggling. And most likely, if you're struggling, you have a pricing problem because you're not charging enough for your work. This method will make sure that you're making money. So yeah, that's it, guys. Leave your questions below in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. I do run my concrete company and my consulting company where I teach other concrete contractors to scale to $3 million a year plus. So I am pretty busy, but I'll do my best to help out where I can. So leave your comments below. Subscribe if you would like to see more business-related content for concrete companies, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks and have a great day.